are some very big impediments.
The following program was recorded at the ARC Annual Industry Forum in Orlando, Florida. I'm pleased to welcome Editor-in-Chief of Supply Chain Brain, Russell Goodman.
Joining us for a conversation today about supply chain technologies is Steve Banker, Service Director, Supply Chain Management of ARC Advisory Group. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you, Russell.
Steve, I know the recession's been pretty hard, and it's been pretty hard on supply chain applications markets. Do you think there have been any exceptions there?
I do. It has been a very, very tough market, and if you look at the financial results of some of the biggest best-of-breed supply chain folks, they're down substantially. And we're going to do some market research, and we're going to show just how much some of these key markets are down. But that said, there are two markets that I find interesting. The demand signal repository market, which grew by over 100%, and there's some interesting warehouse technology markets that have the potential to transform the marketplaces they're in. I guess I'll say a bit about the demand signal repository market first. A lot of folks may not know what that is, but these are solutions used by consumer goods manufacturers to store downstream data. So downstream data is, it's POS information from the retailer. It is what has the retailer shipped from their warehouses to the stores. What is the store inventory system saying they have as far as inventory? And it just gives you a picture of the supply chain and inventory in the supply chain further downstream than manufacturers and the consumer goods industries have had before. Very interesting technology, potentially very high ROI, but right now folks really, very few folks have really figured out how to fully leverage this technology.
Well, now, I know you want to talk about warehouse robotics as well, but before we get into that, let's just stick with DSRs for just a moment. Do you see any impediments to the growth of that market?
There are some very big impediments. This is a technology whose ROI is probably much, much bigger for $10 billion plus consumer goods companies. It probably works better for companies that are called category captains. Category captains are the biggest in their particular category. For example, it might be chips. And folks like Walmart have partnered with them to pay extra attention and to help them with the analytics. It takes, to really get full value out of these solutions, takes good collaboration inside the company. You've got to have the account teams and the marketing teams and the promotion teams and the supply chain teams working together. And it also takes very, very strong collaboration with retailers. And it requires data. And not all retailers have the kind of data manufacturers need or the quality of data that they need. So very big problems to get full value out of these solutions, but a huge potential ROI if we can solve the problems.
Now, I know in conversations we've had, you've talked about a second technology that you were paying attention to. Explain to us, what is that technology?
And I can't say it's a growth technology at this point, but there are some very interesting things happening around warehouse robotics. And is that a market that's going to grow next year? I don't know. But I think within 5, 10, 15 years, it's going to transform the face of warehousing. And basically, warehousing robotics is just a much more flexible form of material handling with much lower risks than the traditional material handling solutions, heavy material handling solutions that we've seen in the warehouse.
Now, I'm sure there are any number of viewers who are not entirely familiar with robotics in the warehouse. So give us as broad a picture of that as you can. Tell us more.
Right. Well, there's two companies that are sort of new here, and they're leading the way. Kiva Systems and Seegrid. So with Kiva Systems, they actually have this little robot that runs out into the warehouse, gets under a pallet or gets under a rack, lifts it up, brings it back to the worker, spins, lights up the slot that they need to pick for them, the person picks, and then the robot goes back into the warehouse. And the nice thing about this is if you think about a warehouse with miles of conveyors, and the business changes, you may just have to rip those conveyors out. It's lost money. But if the business changes with these flexible forms of warehouse technologies, these robots, it's no big deal. You know, if you have to close this warehouse, fine. You put these robots in a truck, just like you put forklifts in a truck, and you take it to the next warehouse.
Now, if there's any area where innovation is important, of course, it's technology. Question to you then is, in the recession that we've been going through, in this economic downturn, has that affected greatly technology providers' ability to innovate?
You know, I think supply chain technology companies were already investing less than they used to. So if you looked at the best of breed supply chain application companies 10 years ago, some of them were investing close to 20% of R&D. Now a really good company is investing 12 or 13%. So the amount of investment has clearly gone down. That preceded the recession, and I think the recession is putting even more pressure on those R&D budgets.
DSRs, warehouse robotics, interesting topic areas. Must be some other technology areas that you've been paying attention to. Let us in on it. What are they?
Yeah, we've been doing research in non-technologies as well. So we're interested in, for example, in the supply chain, third-party logistics is a huge business. And a lot of people's relationships with third-party logistics folks have been pretty commodity-like. The relationships haven't always gone well. So we're doing some research on how to, put those relationships on steroids and take them to the next higher level.
Well, Steve, it's been a pleasure speaking with you today. Thank you so much for being with us, and thank you for the information.
Thank you, Russ.
Steve Banker, ARC Advisory Group, speaking with us today about supply chain technologies. Thanks for watching.